There is a strange moment in a believer's life when the crowd becomes quieter, the invitations become fewer, the people you once spoke to every day suddenly feel distant. You look around and realize that some of the friendships you thought would last forever were only built around habits, convenience, gossip, entertainment, or a version of you that no longer exists. And then a dangerous thought enters the mind. Maybe I am alone because I am different. Maybe I am one of the chosen ones. Maybe nobody understands me because I am spiritually above them. But Islam teaches us something far more powerful and far more humbling. Loneliness is not proof that you are better than people. A small circle is not proof that Allah has chosen you over everyone else. Sometimes Allah removes distractions. Sometimes your own growth changes your relationships. Sometimes people leave because they were never meant to stay. And sometimes you are the one who needs to change. The real question is not, why do I have 0 friends? The real question is, what is Allah teaching me through the people who stay, the people who leave, and the person I am becoming? Lesson 1. Stop calling yourself chosen and start asking what Allah is teaching you. One of the biggest mistakes a person can make is turning loneliness into a badge of spiritual superiority. You lose a few friends, people misunderstand you, your circle becomes smaller, and suddenly you begin to think, I must be different, I must be specially chosen, that is why nobody can handle me. Be careful, the ego can wear religious clothing. Pride does not always sound arrogant. Sometimes pride sounds spiritual. Islam does teach that Allah chooses people for certain responsibilities, certain tests, certain forms of service, and certain blessings. Allah chose prophets. Allah honored righteous people. Allah raises people in rank through faith, patience, knowledge, sincerity, and good deeds. But there is no teaching in Islam that says, if you have no friends, it means you are one of Allah's chosen people. That is not a principle of our religion. In fact, some of the greatest people in Islamic history had deep, loyal, beautiful companionship. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, had Abu Bakr, he had Umar, he had Uthman, he had Ali. He had companions who loved him, defended him, learned from him, corrected misunderstandings around him, traveled with him, cried with him, and stood beside him in the hardest moments. His life was not a story of romanticized isolation. It was a story of meaningful companionship built on faith. So if your circle has become small, do not immediately tell yourself that you are too pure for people. Ask better questions. Are you becoming more serious about your deen while some people around you are still living carelessly? Are you learning boundaries? Are you becoming less interested in gossip? Have you stopped laughing at things that harm your heart? Have you outgrown certain habits? Or are you perhaps becoming harsh, judgmental, emotionally closed, or difficult to be around? A sincere believer is not afraid of self-examination. Allah tells us not to declare ourselves pure. He knows best who is truly mindful of Him. That is a powerful warning against spiritual ego. You do not need to announce that you are chosen. You need to live in a way that is pleasing to Allah. Sometimes a small circle is a blessing because it forces you to notice the quality of your relationships. When you are surrounded by 50 people, you can hide from yourself. You can stay busy. You can move from conversation to conversation and never ask who you really are. But when the noise disappears, your heart becomes louder. You begin to notice your dependence on people's approval. You notice how much of your confidence came from being invited, praised, included, contacted, and needed. You notice whether your happiness collapses when people stop checking on you. You notice whether you can still stand in prayer when nobody claps for your progress. This is where loneliness can become a teacher, but only if you remain humble. Maybe Allah is teaching you that popularity is not the same as value. Maybe He is teaching you that a full contact list is not the same as sincere love. Maybe He is teaching you to stop measuring your life by how many people call you. Maybe he is teaching you that some relationships were built on a version of you that was constantly compromising. Or maybe he is showing you something uncomfortable about yourself. Maybe you cut people off too quickly. Maybe you expect people to read your mind. Maybe you call every disagreement toxic. Maybe you interpret every correction as disrespect. Maybe you believe anyone who does not validate you must be jealous of you. That mindset is not strength. It can be insecurity disguised as confidence. A believer asks Allah for insight, not just vindication. Instead of saying, "Nobody understands me," ask, "Have I learned how to communicate clearly?" Instead of saying, "Everyone is fake," ask, "Am I choosing the wrong people, or am I also failing to show up as a good friend?" Instead of saying, "I am better alone," ask, "Am I using isolation to avoid the vulnerability of healthy relationships?" This is important because Islam does not teach us to hate people. Islam teaches us to know people, deal with people with wisdom, choose company carefully, forgive when appropriate, set limits when necessary, and protect the heart from dependence on creation. The mature believer can walk alone without worshipping loneliness. You do not need a crowd to feel worthy, but you also do not need to reject everyone to feel strong. Your value comes from your relationship with Allah, your character, your obedience, your sincerity, and the good you bring into this world. If Allah reduces your circle, do not immediately make yourself the hero and everybody else the villain. Sit with the lesson. Ask what needs to die inside you: people-pleasing, arrogance, fear of rejection, addiction to attention, attachment to unhealthy relationships, or the belief that you must always be understood. That is where the real transformation begins. Lesson 2. When your values change, some friendships cannot stay the same. A large number of friendships are held together by a shared lifestyle. The relationship feels deep because you spend a lot of time together, but time alone does not create depth. Sometimes what actually connects people is a routine. You complain together, you gossip together, you waste nights together, you mock others together, you chase attention together, you normalize things together that you both know are pulling you away from Allah. Then one person changes. He begins praying consistently. She starts guarding her tongue. He becomes serious about halal income. She stops entering conversations that humiliate other people. He starts saying no to places he once enjoyed. She begins protecting her modesty. He stops wanting to spend hours doing things that leave his heart empty. Suddenly the friendship feels different, not because one person became better in some absolute sense, but because the foundation of the relationship has changed. This is something many Muslims experience and do not understand. They think, "Why are my friends becoming distant now that I am trying to improve?" Sometimes the answer is simple. The old relationship depended on your old habits. When your habits change, the relationship must either grow with you or weaken. This can hurt because you still love the person. You remember the history, you remember the jokes, you remember the years, you remember the moments when they were there for you. And you may feel guilty for changing, but you should never feel guilty for trying to obey Allah. At the same time, do not become arrogant toward people who are at a different stage of growth. Your job is not to act spiritually superior. Your job is to protect your heart while keeping good character. There is a difference between distancing yourself from an environment that damages your faith and looking down on the people inside that environment. You can love someone and still recognize that being around them constantly is weakening you. You can make dua for someone and still stop participating in the same activities. You can respect someone and still reduce access to your life. Not every person deserves the same level of closeness. The Quran gives us an important principle when it describes the regret of a person who wishes he had not taken a certain individual as a close friend, because that person led him away from remembrance after guidance had come. That is not a small warning. Your closest relationships can affect the direction of your soul. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught that a person follows the way of his close friend, so each person should look carefully at whom he takes as an intimate companion. Think about that. Your friends are not just people who fill your weekends. They influence what feels normal. If your circle constantly jokes about haram, haram begins to feel lighter. If your circle constantly complains, gratitude becomes harder. If your circle constantly chases image, status, money, and attention, your heart begins comparing itself without even noticing. If your circle values prayer, truth, self-control, generosity, responsibility, and remembrance of Allah, those things become easier to maintain. This is why some friendships become uncomfortable when you grow. The person may not say, "I do not like your growth." Instead, they may mock the change. They may say you have become too religious. They may say you have changed. And sometimes they are correct. You have changed. The question is whether the change is making you more sincere, more merciful, more disciplined, more useful, and more pleasing to Allah. If it is, then do not apologize for it, but also do not use deen as an excuse to become rude. A lot of people make one of two mistakes. The first person keeps every friendship because he is afraid of being alone. He repeatedly enters environments that damage him because he is terrified of losing social connection. He would rather weaken his heart than feel excluded. The second person becomes religious and suddenly cuts off everyone with contempt. He speaks as though he is the only guided person and everyone else is beneath him. Both positions are unhealthy. The middle path is wisdom. Choose closeness carefully. Keep family ties where Islam requires them. Maintain good manners. Do not expose people's faults. Do not become addicted to unnecessary confrontation, but do not keep placing your heart in spaces where it is constantly pulled away from Allah. If people leave because you stopped participating in things you believe are wrong, let the relationship reveal what it was built on. If the friendship can only survive when you betray your values, it is not the kind of closeness you need. Real friendship can survive growth. Real friendship does not require you to shrink so another person can remain comfortable. Real friendship does not punish you for becoming more disciplined. And real friendship does not make you choose between loyalty to people and loyalty to Allah. Sometimes what feels like losing a friend is actually discovering the true condition of the friendship. That discovery can be painful, but it can save you years. Lesson 3. Being surrounded is not the same as being known. Some people have hundreds of contacts and nobody to call when they are falling apart. Some people are always invited but never understood. Some people laugh loudly in groups and return home feeling invisible. This is one of the hidden forms of loneliness, being surrounded but not truly known. And it can be more painful than being physically alone. You can sit at a table with 10 people and feel as though no one has touched the real part of you in years. Why? Because many relationships operate at the level of performance. People know your jokes, not your fears. They know your job, not your struggles. They know what you post, not what you pray about at night. They know the version of you that keeps the conversation easy. And maybe you helped create that distance. Maybe you learned early that being useful was safer than being vulnerable, so you became the one who listens to everybody else. You became the strong one. You became the funny one. You became the person who solves problems. People began depending on your strength while never learning how to hold your weakness. Then one day you needed support, and you discovered that many people loved what you gave them more than they understood who you were. That realization can make a person cynical. You start saying, people are fake. Some are, but not all. Sometimes the deeper issue is that shallow relationships were allowed to remain shallow for too long. Islamic brotherhood and sisterhood are not supposed to be built only on entertainment. They should contain mercy, sincere advice, trust, protection of one another's dignity, dua, help in hardship, and encouragement toward what is good. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, described believers in their mutual care in powerful ways. He taught that believers support one another and that sincere concern for another Muslim is part of faith. That does not mean every Muslim you meet must become your closest friend. It means the standard for close friendship should be higher than convenience. Ask yourself, who can tell you the truth without trying to humiliate you? Who makes you remember Allah without constantly preaching at you? Who protects your secrets? Who does not become jealous when something good happens to you? Who does not disappear the moment you become less useful? Who can disagree with you without attacking your dignity? Who tells you when you are wrong? Who makes dua for you when you are not in the room? That kind of friend may be rare. Rare does not mean impossible. You may have only 1 or 2 people like that in your entire life. Do not despise the small number. One sincere friend can be more valuable than 100 social connections. Abu Bakr's companionship with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is a powerful example of loyalty, sacrifice, trust, and shared purpose. Their relationship was not built on constant entertainment. It was built through belief, danger, migration, hardship, sacrifice, and truth. This is what mature companionship looks like. 2 people whose connection helps both of them become stronger in what matters. If your circle is shrinking, perhaps Allah is teaching you to stop calling everybody a friend. Some people are acquaintances, some are co-workers, some are relatives. Some are people you care about from a distance. Some are people you enjoy but cannot trust deeply, and some are true companions. You do not need to turn every relationship into the same category. A common source of heartbreak is giving deep access to people who only demonstrated shallow loyalty. You tell them everything too quickly. You become emotionally dependent too quickly. You assume that because someone is warm, they are trustworthy. Because someone is religious in public, you assume they are safe in private. Because someone calls you brother or sister, you assume they will protect your dignity. Trust should be built through consistency. Watch how a person behaves when angry. Watch how they talk about absent people. Watch whether they celebrate other people's success. Watch whether they keep promises. Watch how they treat those who cannot benefit them. Watch whether they make every conversation about themselves. Watch whether they only call when they need something. This is not paranoia, it is discernment. At the same time, do not demand perfection. If you require a friend who never disappoints you, you are asking a human being to be something only Allah can be. People will forget. People will misunderstand. People will have bad days. People will sometimes fail you. The question is not whether someone is flawless. The question is whether the relationship has sincerity, accountability, mutual respect, and the willingness to repair damage. Many believers sabotage good friendships because they confuse one mistake with betrayal. Others stay trapped in harmful relationships because they confuse years of history with loyalty. Wisdom is learning the difference. If you have fewer friends now, do not panic. Build depth, not numbers. Learn how to be a trustworthy friend before demanding trustworthy friends. Learn to listen, learn to apologize, learn to keep secrets, learn to celebrate others without comparison, learn to give advice privately, learn not to weaponize what someone told you in confidence. Become the kind of friend you are praying for, because sometimes the reason your relationships change is that Allah is raising your standard. And sometimes He is raising the standard He expects from you. Lesson 4. Allah may remove your dependence on people before He gives you better people. One of the most painful forms of spiritual growth happens when you realize how dependent you have become on human approval. You know that Allah is enough, but your emotions still rise and fall based on people. If they include you, you feel valuable. If they ignore you, you feel small. If they praise you, you feel confident. If they criticize you, you feel shattered. If a friend replies quickly, you feel secure. If they become distant, your whole day changes. That is not just friendship. That can become emotional dependence. And Allah may allow certain relationships to become uncomfortable so that you notice where your heart is leaning too heavily. There is a difference between loving people and needing people to confirm your worth. Love is healthy. Neediness can become a prison. When your heart becomes excessively attached to someone, you start accepting things you know are wrong just to keep them. You over-explain, you chase, you beg for reassurance, you excuse disrespect, you panic when the person pulls away, you check your phone again and again. You adjust your personality to avoid losing them. You are no longer relating to the person freely. You are emotionally bargaining for security. This is where tawakkul becomes practical. Trusting Allah does not mean you stop caring about relationships. It means your identity is no longer held hostage by them. People can leave and you will grieve, but you will not collapse into the belief that your life has no meaning. People can misunderstand you and you will try to clarify, but you will not destroy yourself trying to force every person to see you correctly. People can reject you and you will feel the pain, but you will not conclude that Allah has rejected you. The heart becomes stronger when it learns this distinction. Allah says that whoever relies upon Him, He is sufficient for that person. Sufficient does not mean you will never feel lonely. It means loneliness does not have the final word. Sufficient does not mean people no longer matter. It means people are no longer your God. You can love deeply without worshipping approval. You can value companionship without becoming addicted to attention. Sometimes Allah allows a friendship to weaken because you are making that person the center of your emotional world. You are checking their mood before checking your prayer. You were afraid of disappointing them, but not afraid of compromising your values. You were thinking about their opinion more than Allah's pleasure. This can happen in friendship, marriage, family, mentorship, even religious circles. A person becomes so important in your mind that you begin treating their acceptance as proof that you are okay. Then Allah creates distance, and it hurts. But distance reveals dependence. At first you think the pain is only about losing the person. Later you realize you are also losing the identity you built around being needed by them. That is why the separation feels so disorienting. Now you have to ask, who am I when this person is not validating me? Who am I when nobody is praising my growth? Who am I when my messages are not being answered? Who am I when I am not invited? Who am I when people choose someone else? The believer's answer has to become deeper than social status. I am a servant of Allah. I still have obligations. I still have prayers. I still have character to build. I still have sins to leave. I still have family to honor. I still have knowledge to seek. I still have work to do. I still have people I can benefit. My life does not stop because one relationship changed. This is spiritual independence, not emotional coldness, not arrogance, not I need nobody. Islam never teaches you that you need nobody. Human beings need one another in countless ways. We need family, we need community, we need teachers, we need neighbors, we need cooperation. We need people who remind us when we forget. The mature statement is not, I need nobody. The mature statement is, I will not make any human being responsible for giving me the worth only Allah can give. That changes everything. Then friendship becomes a gift, not oxygen. You appreciate it without worshipping it. You can receive love without being controlled by fear. You can say no without panicking that the person will leave. You can apologize without humiliating yourself. You can leave a harmful relationship without thinking your future is over. And when better people come, you can love them in a healthier way. Maybe that is why some seasons feel empty. Allah is clearing the addiction before He teaches you the meaning of companionship. Lesson 5. Not every person who leaves is a loss. Huort known biendaiden, genschen desondau, permanenshipend. One of the hardest truths to accept is that sometimes a person leaving your life is not a tragedy. It feels like one. Your heart experiences the absence as damage. You replay the memories. You ask what happened. You wonder whether you should have done more. You compare how close you used to be with how distant you are now, but time can reveal that the ending protected you. Maybe the person was constantly pulling you toward sin. Maybe they were feeding your insecurity. Maybe they were competing with you quietly. Maybe they only respected you when you were useful. Maybe they enjoyed access to your private life but never protected your privacy. Maybe they encouraged your worst habits because your weakness made them comfortable. Maybe every time you tried to grow, they mocked the change. Maybe every conversation ended with you feeling heavier. Then why are you calling the loss automatically bad? Because human beings confuse familiarity with safety. We think, I have known this person for 10 years, therefore this relationship must be good. No. Length proves history. It does not prove health. Some relationships stay for years because both people are afraid to face the truth. Sometimes Allah allows the connection to break because the bond had already become harmful. But there is another side to this lesson. Not every person who leaves is bad either. This matters. People separate for many reasons. Life changes, responsibilities change. Someone gets married, someone moves, someone enters a demanding season, someone becomes a parent, someone struggles privately, someone no longer has the emotional capacity they once had. Do not turn every distance into betrayal. This is one of the most destructive habits in modern relationships, interpreting every reduction in attention as rejection. Your friend does not reply quickly, and you assume they do not care. They stop calling every week, and you conclude the friendship is fake. They become busy, and you tell yourself they have changed. Sometimes they have. Sometimes life simply happened. Do not make your heart a courtroom where every human being is constantly on trial. Give people excuses when reasonable. Ask before assuming. Communicate before cutting off. And when separation does happen, leave with dignity whenever possible. Islam values reconciliation and forgiveness. It discourages prolonged hatred between believers. That does not mean you must restore every relationship to the same closeness. You can forgive someone and still change the level of access they have to your life. Forgiveness is not always reunion. Reunion is not always wisdom. And distance is not always hatred. You can wish someone well without giving them the same access again. You can forgive what happened without pretending it never happened. You can stop talking badly about a person while still protecting yourself from repeated harm. That is maturity. A lot of people remain emotionally trapped because they think closure requires a final conversation where the other person admits everything, apologizes perfectly, and finally understands what they did. Sometimes that conversation never comes. Your healing cannot depend entirely on someone else becoming self-aware. You may need to accept that the person sees the story differently. You may need to stop trying to force your version into their heart. You may need to hand the matter to Allah. Allah knows what happened. Allah knows what you intended. Allah knows what they intended. Allah knows what was hidden. That knowledge can free you from endless explanation. This does not mean you ignore injustice. If a matter requires accountability, family intervention, legal action, or trusted counsel, seek it properly. But emotionally, you do not have to spend years trying to make every person admit that you were right. Sometimes your dignity returns when you stop chasing the verdict. If someone leaves, ask what the relationship taught you. Maybe it taught you to set boundaries earlier. Maybe it taught you not to ignore red flags. Maybe it taught you that you were too dependent. Maybe it taught you to communicate better. Maybe it taught you that you were not as good a friend as you thought. Maybe it taught you to stop oversharing. Maybe it taught you that loyalty cannot be forced. Every ending can contain information. Collect the lesson, release the obsession, and move forward without turning your heart into stone. Lesson 6. Solitude can build you, but isolation can break you. There is a difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is chosen space that helps you return to Allah, think clearly, recover emotionally, read, pray, reflect, and realign your life. Isolation is when you withdraw from people because you are wounded, bitter, suspicious, ashamed, or afraid. From the outside, they can look similar, but inside the heart, they are completely different. Solitude says, I need quiet so I can become healthier. Isolation says, I trust nobody, I need nobody, and everybody will eventually hurt me. Solitude can strengthen you. Isolation can distort you. When you spend too much time alone after being hurt, your mind begins creating stories without correction. You replay old conversations. You assign motives. You imagine what people said about you. You conclude that everyone is the same. You become certain that future friendships will end like past ones. And because nobody is close enough to challenge your assumptions, the story grows stronger. Soon your defense mechanism becomes your personality. You call it independence. But underneath it may be fear. Islam includes moments of retreat and reflection, but it also emphasizes community. The 5 daily prayers can be prayed alone in many circumstances, but congregational prayer has special value. Jumu'ah gathers believers, Ramadan gathers believers, Hajj gathers believers, Zakah connects believers through responsibility and care. Visiting the sick, helping neighbors, attending funerals, maintaining kinship, reconciling people, giving sincere advice, and supporting one another are all part of the religion. Islam does not imagine the ideal Muslim as a permanently isolated person who has rejected society. Even when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would seek periods of retreat, his mission was deeply social. He taught, led, visited, listened, reconciled, advised, forgave, and carried the burdens of a community. So if your response to betrayal is to say, I will never trust anyone again, you may be giving the people who hurt you too much power. They hurt one chapter, and now they get to control every future relationship? No, learn, protect yourself. But do not close the door Allah may use to send good people into your life. Healthy boundaries are doors with locks. Isolation is building a wall with no entrance. You need discernment, not emotional imprisonment. There are Muslims who quietly suffer because they have turned self-protection into permanent disconnection. They attend the masjid but know nobody. They work with people but trust nobody. They have relatives but speak to almost none of them. They scroll through social media, watching everybody else's lives, while telling themselves they prefer being alone. Sometimes they do prefer solitude, but sometimes the truth is they are afraid of rejection. If that is you, begin small. You do not need to become socially available to everyone. Start by becoming present. Greet people. Stay a few minutes after prayer. Attend a beneficial class. Help with a community project. Invite one trustworthy person for tea. Call a relative you respect. Join an environment where the shared activity is good. Friendship is often built through repeated, low-pressure contact. Do not expect instant depth. A lot of lonely people make this mistake. They want a deep friend immediately, but deep trust usually grows slowly. Give relationships time. Let people reveal themselves, and let yourself practice being known. You may also discover that you need to improve socially. This is not an insult. Some people have spent so long isolated that their communication skills have weakened. They interrupt. They overshare. They dominate conversations. They only talk about heavy problems. They correct everybody. They complain constantly. They expect fast emotional intimacy. Then when people pull back, they say, nobody wants real friendship anymore. Maybe, or maybe you need to become easier to connect with. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was known for beautiful character. People felt seen around him. He listened, he smiled. He did not make every interaction exhausting. Well, if you want better friends, work on becoming better company. Ask questions. Listen without waiting for your turn to speak. Do not make every conversation a lecture. Do not constantly expose people's mistakes. Do not always bring negativity. Do not treat every gathering as a place to dump emotional pain. Healthy friendship has balance. There is laughter. There is seriousness. There is support. There is correction. There is space. There is respect. There is dean without performance. Solitude should return you to people with a cleaner heart, not make you hate them. If being alone is making you more grateful, disciplined, focused, prayerful, and emotionally stable, it is serving you. If being alone is making you more suspicious, bitter, self-absorbed, and disconnected from responsibility, something needs to change. Do not romanticize the cage just because you built it yourself. Lesson 7. The right friends will not always make you comfortable. When people talk about finding good friends, they often imagine people who always support them, always agree with them, and always make them feel understood. But sometimes the friend who cares about you most is the one who refuses to clap while you destroy yourself. A righteous friend is not a personal fan club. A righteous friend is not there to confirm every emotion, every decision, and every interpretation. Sometimes they will say, "You were wrong." Sometimes they will say, "You need to apologize." Sometimes they will say, "You are becoming arrogant." Sometimes they will say, "This relationship is harming you." Sometimes they will say, "You are neglecting your prayer." Sometimes they will say, "You keep blaming everybody, but you also have work to do." And your ego may hate them for it. This is why some people end up with 0 friends. They remove everyone who challenges them. They call correction negativity. They call disagreement jealousy. They call boundaries disrespect. They call accountability betrayal. Then only people who flatter them are allowed to stay. That is dangerous. Allah may protect you through a friend who tells you what you do not want to hear. The Quran teaches believers to help one another in righteousness and taqwa. That means friendship has a direction. A good friend does not only ask, "Are you happy?" A good friend also asks, "Is this good for your dunya and akhirah?" There will be moments when you want comfort, but what you need is correction. There will be moments when you want someone to take your side, but what you need is someone to protect you from your own anger. Imagine 2 types of friends. The first friend listens while you complain about someone. He immediately says, "You are completely right. Cut them off. They are jealous. They never deserved you." The second friend listens and says, "What they did sounds wrong. But did you say what you told me you said? Because that part was also harsh. You should set a boundary, but you should also apologize for your part." Which friend is easier? The first. Which friend may be better for your soul? The second. Truthful companionship is uncomfortable sometimes, but there is a way to correct. A good friend does not humiliate you publicly. A good friend does not collect your weaknesses and later weaponize them. A good friend does not enjoy being right about your failures. A good friend corrects with mercy and discretion. And when you find someone like that, value them. Do not throw away a sincere friendship because your ego was bruised. At the same time, correction should not become control. Some people hide manipulation behind, "I am only advising you." They criticize everything. They question every decision. They constantly make you feel spiritually inferior. They demand access to your private life. They become angry when you do not follow their opinion. That is not healthy nasiha. Sincere advice respects your dignity and understands its limits. Learn to distinguish between someone who challenges your ego and someone who damages your confidence. One makes you more honest, the other makes you smaller so they can feel bigger. One points you toward Allah, the other makes you dependent on their approval. One can accept that you may choose differently, the other punishes you for independence. These distinctions matter. If you keep losing friends, examine how you respond to being corrected. Can you hear difficult truths without exploding? Can you admit fault? Can you say, "You are right, I handled that badly"? Can you apologize without adding 10 excuses? Can you receive advice without immediately searching for the other person's flaws? This is part of spiritual maturity. We all need mirrors, not mirrors that flatter us, mirrors that show what is actually there. And because no human mirror is perfect, we compare advice against Quran, Sunnah, sound knowledge and wisdom. Do not surrender your mind to friends, but do not worship your own opinion either. The believer remains teachable. That may be one of the greatest signs that loneliness is refining you rather than corrupting you. You become more careful about who enters your inner circle, but also more humble when good people speak truth to you. Lesson 8. Build a small circle around Allah, not around your wounds. Allah being unassailed, eventually you reach the most important question. If your old friendships have faded, what do you build now? You build differently. You stop building around loneliness. You stop choosing people simply because they give you attention. You stop becoming close to someone just because they also feel rejected. Pain can create fast bonds, but shared wounds do not automatically create healthy friendship. Two hurt people can either help each other heal or spend years confirming each other's bitterness. So build your circle around values. Look for people who take Allah seriously without acting superior. People who can laugh without crossing every boundary. People who work. People who keep promises. People who are kind to family. People who know how to disagree. People who can say sorry. People who do not expose everybody's private business. People who do not make every gathering about gossip. People who have goals beyond image and status. People who make you want to become cleaner inside. You may not find 10, find one, then become one. A small righteous circle can transform a life. One friend who says, "Let us pray first." One friend who says, "Do not respond while you are angry." One friend who says, "That money does not look halal. Be careful." One friend who says, "You have been missing Fajr. What is happening?" One friend who sits with you when life becomes heavy without needing to fix everything. One friend who celebrates your success without making it about himself. One friend who reminds you that Allah is watching when nobody else is. That kind of friendship is wealth. And if you do not have it yet, do not become desperate. Your life is not on hold. Use the season. Strengthen your worship. Improve your health. Fix your finances. Learn something useful. Repair family relationships where possible. Serve people. Go to beneficial places consistently. Become someone with structure. Loneliness becomes dangerous when you make it your entire identity. You start consuming endless content about being misunderstood, betrayed, different, selected, special, alone, and superior. Every video confirms the same story. Everyone is fake. Everyone is jealous. You are different. You are chosen. You are alone because your energy is too high. Be very careful with that narrative. It can feed the nafs while pretending to heal the heart. Islamic growth is not about building a mythology around yourself. It is about becoming a better servant, more truthful, more patient, more disciplined, more merciful, more aware of your faults, more useful to people, more dependent on Allah. If your loneliness is making you think you are above everyone, it is not helping you. If it is making you closer to Allah and better in character, then the season may be producing something beautiful. But even then, do not assume the season must last forever. Ask Allah for righteous companionship. There is no weakness in that dua. Ask for friends who protect your deen. Ask for people who are emotionally mature. Ask for people who bring honesty into your life. Ask for people who do not disappear when you are no longer useful. Ask for friends whose presence makes obedience easier. Then take practical steps. Go where such people are more likely to be. You are unlikely to build a righteous circle while repeatedly living in environments built around everything you are trying to leave. Attend classes, volunteer, participate in mosque activities, join beneficial study circles, reconnect with decent people you neglected. Be the person who initiates. Many good people are lonely because everybody is waiting for somebody else to make the first move. Send the message. Invite someone for coffee. Ask how they are doing. Offer help. Friendship requires effort. And when Allah gives you good people, Do not neglect them. Some people pray for good friends and then become poor friends themselves. They never check in. They cancel constantly. They only call when they are suffering. They do not celebrate others. They disappear when life improves. Then they complain that nobody stays. Relationships need maintenance, not obsession. Maintenance, small consistent acts, a message, a visit, a dua, a favor, a conversation, an apology, a moment of honesty. And above all, keep Allah at the center. Because every human relationship is temporary. Some end through distance, some through conflict, some through change. And every relationship eventually ends through death. If your heart is built only on people, every ending will destroy you. If your heart is anchored in Allah, you can love people deeply while knowing they are gifts, not gods. That is the balance. So maybe the truth behind chosen ones have zero friends is not what social media tells you. Maybe the truth is not that spiritually superior people are destined to be alone. Maybe the truth is that growth exposes relationships. Faith changes priorities. Boundaries reduce access. Pain teaches discernment. Loneliness exposes dependence. And maturity teaches you that one sincere friend is better than a room full of people who only know your performance. But remember this carefully. Do not glorify having zero friends. Do not make isolation your identity. Do not turn pain into pride. Do not assume every person who leaves is evil. Do not assume every person who challenges you is jealous. And do not call yourself chosen because people misunderstand you. Instead, become someone Allah is pleased with. Become someone trustworthy. Become someone whose private character is stronger than his public image. Become someone who can stand alone without becoming arrogant and stand with people without becoming dependent. If your circle is small, protect its quality. If your circle is empty, use the season wisely. If someone good enters your life, value them. If someone harmful leaves, learn. If someone sincere corrects you, listen. If someone wrongs you, seek justice without becoming consumed by revenge. And if loneliness visits you tonight, do not automatically interpret it as rejection. Turn it into conversation with Allah. Tell Him what you cannot tell people. Ask Him to clean your heart from bitterness. Ask Him to show you your own faults. Ask Him to protect you from harmful companionship. Ask Him to send people who make your deen stronger. Ask Him to make you the kind of person who deserves good company. Because in the end, the goal is not to become a person with zero friends. The goal is to become a believer who does not lose himself trying to keep people. A believer who can love without worshipping approval. A believer who can forgive without surrendering wisdom. A believer who can walk alone when necessary, but still keeps his heart open to righteous companionship. A believer who knows that being unpopular does not make you pure, being popular does not make you corrupt, and being alone does not make you chosen. What matters is who you are with Allah when nobody is watching. What matters is the condition of your heart. What matters is whether the people around you are helping you become better, and whether your presence is helping them become better too. That is the friendship worth searching for. That is the loneliness worth learning from. And that is the kind of life that does not collapse when the crowd disappears.